the election campaign of 2014 Lok Sabha polls was dominated by the idea of cooperative federalism because the BJP prime ministerial candidate, almost declared prime ministerial candidate, Narendra Modi, incessantly talked about cooperative federalism, quote unquote, and Team India, meaning thereby Team New Delhi and Team State capitals. Now, so in this brief presentation, the paper is there with you. You may have a better look at it. In this brief presentation, I will try to assess to what extent Prime Minister Modi has measured up to his promise of cooperative federalism. Now, I have touched upon a number of, and a subservient civil service has also told his line. Very briefly, the second point I discuss in my paper is the role of the federal second chamber. The Rajya Sabha is a federal second chamber in a parliamentary federal system, not in a presidential federal system. In presidential federal system, there is a greater degree of legislative federalism, as in the USA, where the Senate is the most powerful federal second chamber in the world. No other country has such a stronger triple E Senate, elected, effective, and equal. All states. New York also has 2 seats. Nevada, which is a small state, has also 2 seats. So, but the Rajya Sabha is a parliamentary, Rajya Sabha is a federal second chamber in a parliamentary system where the locus of political gravity is in the popularly elected chamber, Lok Sabha, because Lok Sabha is the seat of cabinet confidence. It controls the cabinet, it controls the purse of the nation. It has final say on parliamentary sanction of money to the government. It has Lok Sabha again, and the Rajya Sabha has only suspensive veto on money bills, and Rajya Sabha has no say on the confidence of the parliament in the government. And therefore it was a secondary second chamber. Modi has faced a Rajya Sabha, which was earlier a secondary chamber. Now it is a very powerful, it has become a very powerful federal second chamber because Rajya Sabha reflects the party systems in the state. Lok Sabha reflects the party system in the nation, and Rajya Sabha reflects the party system in the states. And by virtue of that, Rajya Sabha, after 1989, no government has enjoyed majority in the Rajya Sabha, and therefore Rajya Sabha has become a very strong control over the centralizing tendencies or the centralizing propensities of Prime Minister Modi. I don't have to go into the details. You know them. In any case, I have discussed in some detail in my paper. Now, the third point that I would like to make is how the Prime Minister, how Prime Minister Modi, his government, how have they treated the governors of the states. The governors of the state are the constitutional heads of the state government, and Modi government's treatment of the governors has raised constitutional temper because the previous UPA government after coming to power, had practically dismissed, all the governors who were appointed by the Vajpayee government. There was a case arising out of those dismissals in the Supreme Court, in which the Supreme Court said that the governors enjoy office during the pleasure of the president, but the presidential pleasure cannot be exercised capriciously, and the election of a new government cannot be, the tone was moral, not legal, should not be a basis for removal of the government. Soon after coming to power, the Modi government, lettered by the Supreme Court judgment 2010 in Singh versus Union of India, which arose out of the dismissals made by the UPA government. Lettered by that judgment, the Modi government very sheepishly, very meekly prompted, not through the Home Minister, but through Home Secretary, not through formal letter, but by phoning the governors to resign or face removal. Some governors followed the prompting, some governors registered finally yielded, and 9 gubernatorial heads rolled. 9 governors were practically removed, quote unquote, removed, although they resigned from office, and one of them, Governor Qureshi of Uttarakhand, went to the Supreme Court against his dismissal. The case is still sub judice, but the Supreme Court, because of its doctrine of presidential pleasure, it endorses the doctrine of presidential pleasure by and large, and therefore the Supreme Court is not pursuing that case very vigorously. So we don't know what the final judgment may be, or what the final judgment, or when the final judgment comes. So the treatment of the governors, the heads of the constitutional heads of the state government, state executive, has been questionable. As a student of constitutional federalism, it appears to me it is highly questionable. And there can be no excuse that the Manmohan Singh government did it, therefore the Modi government will also do it. That's no excuse. The fourth point I would make is, soon after coming to power, the Modi government, just on the morrow of coming to power, the Modi government, with the support of entire opposition, Congress included, introduced a constitutional amendment bill, 99th constitutional amendment bill, and a conforming parliamentary enactment replacing judicial collegium for appointment of superior court judges, Supreme Court and High Court judges. They were appointed since 1993 through a collegium of judges comprising the Chief Justice of India, 4 of his senior-most colleagues in case of Supreme Court appointments, and in case of High Court appointments, the Chief Justice of the concerned High Court. They prepared a panel since 1993. That is, the earlier executive primacy in appointment of judges was replaced by judicial supremacy by introducing this new system of collegium since 1993. Now, the Modi government tried to end it, in fact practically ended it, because the constitutional amendment was passed by the Lok Sabha by 2/3 majority, by the Rajya Sabha by 2/3 majority. It also received ratification by 50% of the state legislatures, and one is puzzled how this kind of majority came together to change the system of collegial, judicial collegium, and ended the primacy of judicial advice to the president, and introduced a new system. The new system is somewhat complicated and it would take time. But very briefly, instead of judicial collegium of judges, now under the new amendment, it was proposed that there would be, three representatives from the Supreme Court, Chief Justice of India, two of the senior most judges of the Supreme Court of India, and three representatives from the executive side. And the three representatives from the executive side who constitute the National Judicial Appointments Commission, NJAC, would be the Law Minister of India and two, unquote unquote, two eminent persons appointed by the executive. So the new system introduced a parity between the executive on the one hand and the judiciary on the other. Three representatives from the judiciary and three representatives from the executive. And the judicial supremacy was ended because even the eminent persons whose qualifications are not laid down in the Act, they are to be appointed by the Union Executive, and they could also veto any name in the panel. So, any panel prepared for appointment of judges, any panel prepared by the NJAC, within the NJAC, was subject to veto by any two members. So it not only ended judicial supremacy, which was introduced in 1993 because the executive had grossly misused its power of appointment of judges and politicized the Supreme Court. That system was overnight changed, sought to be changed by Modi. A case in the Supreme Court was filed in public interest litigation, and the Supreme Court declared the constitutional amendment unconstitutional. And therefore, the net effect is, in the Supreme Court Advocates on Record versus Union of India case 2015, the new amendment was declared unconstitutional, and the old system is now restored. And but the executive and the judiciary are negotiating memorandum of procedure of appointment, and there are serious differences on both sides, and the judiciary is delaying the appointment of the judges, which is so much impacting on the functioning of the judiciary that in a conference, first conference of its kind in the country, a conference of the executive heads and the judicial heads of the country, which would mean the first ministers in the union government and the chief ministers, first minister in the union government and all the first ministers in the state cabinets, that is chief ministers, and chief justices of all the courts, Supreme Court and High Court. In that conference, the Chief Justice of India, complaining about delay in the appointment of judges, Chief Justice broke down and started crying on the mic. I believe that the system of collegium is not without its demerits. The collegium system has run into serious difficulties, yet it is less vicious and less damaging than the appointment by the executive. Appointment by the executive, power of appointment by the executive has so mischievously, grossly abused in the past that the system of judicial collegium is less dangerous than the executive appointment. That's my position. Another point that I make is about fiscal federalism, and here again I will be very brief. And about the GST, I have some discussion here. But tomorrow, V.N. Alok, who is an expert of fiscal federalism, will be speaking to you. I'm not an expert in fiscal federalism, but I do have a working knowledge. So, in fiscal federalism, a few most notable changes are during the Modi regime, abolition of the institution of Planning Commission and its replacement by Niti Aayog, which it seems to me is not a very wise choice, because Planning Commission, even though it was executive appointed, even though it was a creature of the executive, is set up outside the constitution, yet it had developed some professionalism and its expertise was quite non-partisan. There were certainly impact of political influences can be detected, but by and large, Planning Commission was a body of experts with some degree of political guidance, of course, and it had a regular procedural say in fiscal decision making of the nation. Today, with the abolition of the Planning Commission, the power has been centralized into the Finance Ministry. Finance Ministry has become the final decision maker without the benefit of expert advice of the Planning Commission. And the Niti Aayog that has been set up it doesn't have the kind of mandate and mission that the Planning Commission had. Niti Aayog is a think tank, and it is on the sweet will of the government to refer some matter to it or not. Planning Commission has become a regular channel of deliberation and decision making, and therefore the net effect of the abolition of Planning Commission and its replacement by Niti Aayog is centralization of fiscal powers in the Finance Ministry. Another important development in this area is that the 14th Finance Commission report, which is a constitutional body, not a political body, by and large, at least less political than the Planning Commission. The Finance Commission report, 14th Finance Commission report, that raised the state share in divisible pool of financial resources of the nation from 32% to 42%, that has been accepted and implemented by the Modi government, as Finance Commission reports have generally been honored by all previous governments. This government has also honored it, and that is a positive point with the Modi government in fiscal federalism. And another notable development is, the introduction of the GST. There are serious weaknesses in the present GST regime that Modi government has somehow managed to got approved by the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, by the Parliament, and it is now in place. It is already, the GST Council has already started working. But the GST Council is a very poor substitute for Interstate Finance Commission, which is recommended in the Constitution, but has never been set up so far. But anyhow, the GST is at least a limited step ahead in the direction of free trade within the nation. Free trade, and India to an extent would become a national, federal economy. Local governments, we have already heard in the previous panel, local government still continues to be very weak, neglected, linked in the federal structure. Symmetrical federalism, you know, initially there was apparent success in Jammu and Kashmir because a separatist, practically a separatist party became a co-sharer of power in the Jammu and Kashmir government. It became a partner. You know, its position on autonomy, if I were in a position of deciding the formation of a coalition government in Jammu and Kashmir, I would have opted for national conference, because national conference talks about greater autonomy, whereas the position of PDP is ambivalent. Position of PDP is ambivalent. They talk about self-rule, and they do not define their self-rule within India or self-rule outside India. But in any case, the Modi government took a great challenge, and I thought that perhaps he has taken inspiration from the Canadian experience. In Canada, the separatist party was elected to power in the state government. It became the official opposition in the House of Commons, in the national parliament, and separatism, Quebec separatism, is largely contained because of democratic and federal participation. So I thought that perhaps India is taking a leaf from the Canadian experience. But there, what is happening in Kashmir today, you know, I don't have to narrate the story. You know, we may be winning on the, you know, on the LOC, but within Kashmir, the victory, democratic and federal victory within Kashmir is a great challenge that India must address itself. In Nagaland, there has been again a partial success. You know, with one of these separatist, you know, factions of Naga National Council, Modi has made an accord which has renounced separatism, but another faction based in Burma is still committed to separatism, and there also is a partial success. I shouldn't, you know, tax the patience of the chair.